There's a brutal, sacred truth no one wants to say out loud. You are exactly where your discipline allowed you to be. Not your dreams, not your talent, not your potential, your discipline. The life you're living is the residual echo of what you've tolerated, committed to, and repeated, whether consciously or unconsciously. And for most, that reality is a prison built with their own hands, brick by brick, excuse by excuse. And yet every day people wake up confused about why nothing changes. They confuse motion with progress, planning with execution, desire with devotion. But desire without discipline is just delusion wearing a mask of hope. You don't get the life you wish for, you get the life you repeat. Every thought, every decision, every moment you choose to obey comfort instead of truth. Freedom isn't found in the absence of rules, it's found in the mastery of them. Because in a world addicted to distractions, emotional impulses, and the dopamine drip of instant gratification, the most radical act is self-governance. Discipline is no longer optional. It's the dividing line between the enslaved and the sovereign, between those who build empires and those who scroll past them. And make no mistake, you are already disciplined. You are disciplined in your distractions, your justifications, your routines of avoidance. You're loyal to something. The question is it killing you or carving you? Radical discipline starts the moment you stop negotiating with the voice that keeps you ordinary. The moment you stop worshiping your feelings and start serving your future. Because the truth is, you don't need more time. You need fewer leaks. Fewer leaks in focus, fewer leaks in energy, fewer leaks in commitment. You think freedom means doing what you want? No, that's indulgence, and indulgence is a prison with velvet walls. Real freedom means becoming the kind of person who does what must be done, whether you feel like it or not. The kind of person whose word is law in their own world. The kind who doesn't break promises to themselves. The kind who doesn't need accountability because they are the authority. That is radical discipline, and it will cost you everything you thought you needed. Your comfort, your excuses, your lazy stories about how it's too late, or too hard, or too risky. But what you gain, a mind that bends reality, a body that reflects intention, a presence that commands environments without saying a word. You stop being reactionary because your routine becomes a weapon. You stop chasing motivation because your movement becomes inevitable. And while the rest of the world is busy seeking hacks, shortcuts, and the latest path of least resistance, you become dangerous. Not to others, to mediocrity, to anything unrefined, undisciplined, untrue. Your life becomes a sculpture, and every repetition is a strike of the chisel. Each choice you make becomes sacred when you rise, when you rest, what you eat, what you tolerate, what you build. And suddenly, your standards become so high, they purify your entire environment. People who can't keep up with your rhythm fall away, not because you're better, but because your discipline exposed their distractions. And that's the other truth no one tells you. Discipline will make you lonely because most people aren't building, they're performing, pretending, drifting. They'll tell you to slow down. They'll call your commitment too much, but let them call it what they want. While they scroll, you sculpt. While they doubt, you decide. While they break, you build. Because discipline isn't about being harsh. It's about being holy with your energy. You no longer spend time, you invest it. You no longer seek ease, you master effort. And in doing so, you become something the world no longer recognizes. An adult mind in the culture of children. You don't cry for structure, you create it. You don't wait to feel aligned, you align yourself through motion. And when life punches back, you don't flinch, you fortify. Because radical discipline isn't about control. It's about coherence. It's the fusion of your identity and your actions. So there's no gap between who you say you are and how you move. That's real freedom. Not having options, having intention, not avoiding pain, becoming immune to it, not doing more, but doing what matters every single time. And once you taste that kind of power, you can't go back. Comfort feel like poison. Delays feel like betrayal. Mediocrity feels like death. Because the self you're becoming doesn't beg for more time. It makes every second count. That's radical discipline. That's the realest revolution you'll ever live. And once you've crossed into this terrain where every action is laced with intention, you begin to see that discipline was never about restriction. It was always about refinement. This isn't about saying no to pleasure. It's about saying yes to power. Because now pleasure without purpose feels hollow. Now indulgence without alignment feels like decay. You felt what it's like to wake up aligned with the mission and nothing else hits the same. You stop asking, what do I feel like doing today? And start asking, what does my future require of me right now? You no longer seek a plan that makes you feel good. You execute a strategy that makes you invincible. The concept of balance begins to rot in your mouth because balance was never the point accuracy was. You're not here to do it all. You're here to do the one thing with such piercing clarity that the rest falls in line or falls away. You no longer get distracted by things that are merely important. You move only for what's non-negotiable. This is how you escape the gravitational pull of mediocrity, not by force, but by frequency. Because now you vibrate on a different axis. You live on a tighter loop of awareness. You feel things sooner. You catch lies faster. You redirect energy instantly. Discipline has sharpened you into someone who doesn't need time to think about it. And that knowing, that intuition, born not of magic, but of mastery, becomes your greatest asset. Now, when the world throws chaos, you don't spiral. You schedule, you adapt without hesitation, you pivot without drama, you sacrifice without mourning, because your life is a weapon, and weapons don't complain, they execute. That's what radical discipline gives you, not just control, but clarity under fire. And in that clarity, the noise of the world starts to fade. You don't care who's watching. You don't care who's doubting. You don't care who's ahead. Because this race was never with them. It was always with the version of you who still believes comfort is safer than greatness. And that version, you buried it. You outworked it, outtrained it, outlasted it. And now you live on the edge of your own evolution, where the air is thin, the silence is heavy, and every moment asks, do you still want this? And your answer is movement, because discipline has become your native language, and freedom, just the accent it speaks in. And now, from this state of relentless precision, a new realization rises, something deeper than motivation, sharper than strategy. You begin to see that radical discipline is not a tool. It's an identity. It's not something you apply. It's something you become. And that becoming is irreversible. You don't try to stay consistent. You can't function without it. You don't hope to show up. You're offended by the idea of not showing up. Not because someone is watching, not because you're being judged, but because you see yourself. You've trained your soul to expect excellence, and anything beneath that feels like blasphemy. This isn't obsession. This is reverence. Reverence for the gift of becoming. Reverence for the time you still have. Reverence for the silence that taught you to listen to the version of you that doesn't need validation because it knows. And when you live like this, like discipline is your native terrain, everything in your life becomes a message. Your environment, your posture, your words, your silence. You don't have to announce your progress. It becomes evident, not in what you show, but in what you no longer entertain, the invitations you decline, the battles you don't enter, the temptations you outgrow. People will try to label this as intensity. Let them. They don't understand that when you've suffered for clarity, you no longer let the unclear anywhere near you. They don't understand that when you rebuilt yourself with nothing but principles, there is no price high enough to sell them. You become immune to the hunger for applause because now you're addicted to alignment. And in alignment, you don't chase, you command. Not by volume, but by vibration. Not by push, but by presence. Because radical discipline doesn't make you louder. It makes you undeniable. You become the kind of force that doesn't need to knock the door opens because you showed up. You're not persuasive. You're precise. You're not emotional. You're embodied. You've cut the leash. You've burned the map. You've become the standard. And now, you don't just walk in discipline. You breathe it, and from this breath of discipline, born not from force, but from frequency, something even more powerful, emerges something that no system, no enemy, no failure can touch. Peace, not the fragile situational peace sold to the masses, the kind that crumbles when things don't go your way. No, this peace is different. It's violent in its stillness. It's unshakable because it was earned. It's the peace of a soul that is no longer at war with itself. The peace that comes when your words match your actions, when your values guide your mornings and your standards govern your nights, when the noise of the world can't penetrate the fortress of your routine. This is the peace of a disciplined man, the serenity of a woman who no longer negotiates with chaos. Because when everything in your life is designed with intent, disorder has nowhere to hide. There are no cracks for confusion to slip into, no room for weak agreements, no time for half-lived days. Your structure becomes sacred, not rigid, ruthless, not cold, clear, and people can feel it. They sense the weight of your decisions. They sense the rhythm in how you move, how you answer, how you walk away without noise, how you stay when others would run. This is the calm of someone who doesn't have to rush because they've already chosen. Discipline removed the distractions. Discipline dissolved the doubt. Discipline burned the bridge to who you used to be. So now the only direction is forward. Forward through fatigue. Forward through friction. Forward through the resistance that stops 99% of people, but not you. Because you're no longer measuring your progress by how you feel, but by how you finish. You finish the rep. You finish the sentence. You finish the promise you made to yourself when no one was watching, when the fire was dying, when the only thing keeping you upright was integrity. And that integrity, that self-imposed law, is why you're free. Not because life got easier, but because you got harder to break. You stopped being ruled by impulse. You stopped being seduced by shortcuts. You stopped needing motivation, permission, or even understanding. You just became the one who moves. And movement became your nature. And when movement becomes your nature, your identity crystallizes into something irreversible. You are no longer the person who tries. You are the one who executes. Not when it's convenient, not when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Because the harder it is, the sharper you get, the more resistance you feel, the more focused you become. Pain doesn't slow you down anymore, it points the way. You've trained your body to respond to friction like a compass. If it hurts, if it stretches, if it pushes back, you lean in because you know what's waiting on the other side isn't comfort. It's evolution. This is where discipline stops being just a practice and starts becoming your pattern of perception. You see things differently. While others ask, can I do this? You ask, what happens if I don't? While they wait for inspiration, you're already halfway through. While they plan to start, you're obsessed with the finish. You begin to track time like a predator, not with desperation, but with devotion. Every hour has a name, every task has a reason, every habit has a target. And the more you refine this rhythm, the more ruthless your boundaries become. Not to punish, but to protect. Because now you understand your discipline is a vault, and inside that vault, your vision, your vitality, your voice. And not everyone gets a key. Not everyone gets access to a mind this focused, a spirit this trained, a presence this clean. So you guard it not with arrogance, but with awareness. You've seen what happens when you let the undisciplined in. They scatter your focus. They dilute your intent. They infect your process with their patterns of chaos. Not out of malice, but because they haven't decided yet. They haven't chosen what you've chosen. And what have you chosen? To live deliberately. To construct every day like it's your last iteration before breakthrough. To move as if the outcome is already done and your job is simply to match it in the physical. Because that's what discipline gives you, not just strength, but certainty. You no longer wonder if it will happen. And your life now is just the unfolding of a decision that was already made by the version of you who refused to die ordinary. And from that decision, that silent, sovereign vow made in the crucible of self-mastery, your reality starts to bend. Not through magic, through mathematics, the math of momentum, the compounding of consistency, the exponential return of small actions done relentlessly, with no witnesses, no cheering, no applause. This is where your discipline transcends habit and becomes identity infrastructure. It's not what you do, it's what you are. You are the standard. You are the system. You are the certainty that others try to imitate but can't replicate because they're still trying to borrow intensity when you've already become the source. And now time submits to you. Not because you control the clock, but because you waste nothing. You've made discipline a filter. If it doesn't contribute to your code, it doesn't exist in your field. Conversations, commitments, consumption, everything is scanned, everything is judged against one question. Does this sharpen me? If yes, it stays. If no, it dies. Instantly, without guilt. That's not cold, that's clean. And that cleanliness is your power. While others drown in complexity, you clarify. While they multitask their way into madness, you simplify into savagery. One goal, one rhythm, one mission, over and over until the world has no choice but to move around your movement. And if it doesn't, you build your own table, your own structure, your own realm where discipline is not just honored, it's required. And in that realm, freedom isn't something you hope for. It's something you engineer. Freedom of mind, freedom of movement, freedom of meaning. Because when you no longer betray yourself, when every choice flows from clarity, when every day reflects your design, you stop surviving. You start sculpting yourself, your craft, your kingdom, and you do it all with one tool the world forgot about, radical discipline. And when you sculpt with discipline, when every breath is a command, not a question, there's nothing left to prove, you become the result, the walking embodiment of intention realized. You don't chase impact, you emit it, not through force, through frictionless inevitability, because now you understand the final secret. Discipline doesn't just shape your days, it shapes your destiny. It dictates who you are when no one is watching. It determines how deep you go when no one else is willing. It writes the legacy that no title, no status, no amount of wealth could ever counterfeit. Discipline is the sculptor. Your life is the stone. And the carving never ends, not because you're unfinished, but because you're limitless. Every day you cut deeper. Every act refines the edge. Every refusal to break builds a weight that cannot be bought, imitated, or inherited. It can only be earned, and the ones who earn it, they walk different. They speak with fewer words and more gravity. They move not with hustle, but with heat. Because when your discipline is pure, your presence becomes pressure. It pushes out the irrelevant. It burns away the unnecessary. It magnetizes only what's meant to multiply your mission. And when you live like that, fully integrated, fully aligned, fully alive, you realize something terrifyingly beautiful. You've become the thing you used to seek, the leader, the anchor, the weapon, the truth. You are no longer in pursuit of greatness. You are greatness practiced in silence, delivered through action, baptized by repetition, not for applause, But for rain, and in this rain, there's no throne, there's no crown, just a mirror and a reflection that never flinches. This is the gift. This is the fire. This is the realest freedom you will ever know. Radical discipline, not for the world, for you. And when that freedom becomes your default state, not a peak moment, but a permanent code, your entire existence sharpens into a message without words. You no longer perform effort. You radiate purpose. You wake up with no confusion about what matters. Your mind doesn't wander. Your will doesn't weaken. You don't ask, should I? You already did. Because discipline, when sustained long enough, erases doubt. You've burned through the hesitation. You've exhausted the resistance. You've left behind the version of yourself that needed inspiration to move. You no longer move toward discipline. You muovi as disciplini. Every gesture, every pivot, every breath calibrated to the weight of your calling. And now, time doesn't just work for you. It bows to you. You've become so ruthless with your clarity, the universe has no choice but to cooperate. Because you've earned something no book, no coach, no system can give you. Self-certainty. Not arrogance. Alignment. You no longer second guess what's for you. Because your life reveals it. And in that revelation, everything false begins to collapse. False urgency, false identity, false alliances, false ambition. You're not here to chase any of it. You're here to forge what can't be faked. Discipline has made you sacred, not because you're better, but because you're unavailable for anything that dishonors your path. You don't waste time explaining your standards. You enforce them. You don't entertain the undisciplined. You expose them just by showing up in full force. And when they ask you, how did you do it? You won't tell them about vision boards or motivation or even dreams. You'll tell them about reps. The rep you did when you were tired. The rep you did when no one clapped. The rep you did when quitting would have felt like mercy. Because that's what no one sees. And it's the only thing that ever mattered. Not talent, not potential, not even pain. Just discipline, chosen, repeated, embodied, until you became a force so undeniable, even your past stopped recognizing you. And now, you no longer live to escape who you were. You live to honor who you decided to become. And once you're living to honor who you decided to become, something ancient awakens inside you, something that doesn't bow to trends, doesn't seek applause, and doesn't flinch when tested. Authority, not authority over others, authority over self. The kind of presence that enters a room and shifts the temperature, not through volume, but through vibration. Because the most powerful human isn't the one who controls the most people. It's the one who controls the most of themselves. Their reactions, their routines, their rituals. You become that. A sovereign system of integrity in a world of impulse. A self-led storm of precision in a culture of chaos. You no longer adapt to survive. You architect to expand. You've stopped looking for flow because you are the current. You are the pattern that others begin to model. You are the movement that others try to name. But there is no name for this level because so few ever reach it. It's lonely here, but it's not empty. It's rich with silence that feeds you, with structure that protects you, with solitude that multiplies you. Because once you've become discipline embodied, you don't need the world to notice. You are the notice. Your life becomes the evidence. Your gaze becomes the reminder. Your existence becomes the mirror showing others what's possible when they stop entertaining their lesser selves. And what's left? Not applause, not fame, just legacy. Not the kind etched in marble, the kind etched in memory of every moment you chose forward when everything screamed fall back. That's what remains when the noise dies. That's what lasts when the body fades. Not the empire you built, but the unbreakable code you lived by. And that code, that sacred chain of decisions, refined through discipline, sculpted through devotion, is your final rebellion in a world addicted to weakness. It says, I was here. I mattered, not because I followed, but because I forged. So now here you are. No more wondering, no more wavering, no more waiting for signs from a world that was never built to understand your fire. You've chosen, you've carved your life into a blade, you've refined your mind into a fortress, you've transformed your time into a weapon, and what you've built isn't for show, it's for war. The quiet war against mediocrity, against delay, against the part of you that once begged for the life you now command. You don't need to be reminded anymore. You are the reminder. That freedom is earned, that power is trained, that purpose is paid for in full by the disciplined. You are not asking life to deliver anything. You are delivering yourself into the kind of life that only answers to those who are relentlessly aligned. You've buried the noise. You've silenced the old self. You've risen into a rhythm that only the few will ever know, the rhythm of the ones who decided not to be ordinary. And now, every step you take, every breath you claim, every day you finish it, is not just a moment, it is proof that no matter what came before, no matter who tried to stop you, no matter how long it took, you became the force they said didn't exist. And that force, that code, that presence, it's not temporary. It's eternal. This is the reward of radical discipline. Not just the life you wanted, but the self you were born to become.